So, good afternoon. So, I've just spent the morning. We're in a coffee shop. It's a little bit noisy, so I apologise for the noise. And the microphone's still probably going to be playing up and making annoying volume adjustments. For some reason, I'm not going to bore you, but I got this new iPhone about a few months ago because of the storage issue. So it's got a lot of storage. That may mean that the sort of the microphone element of the phone is sort of squidged and so produces faulty audio. So what can you do? But I don't have the time or the effort to improve that. So I actually did buy a microphone. I bought a special podcast microphone that plugs in with the lightning cable into the iPhone. Then the microphone doesn't work. Oh, it does work sometimes, but then it just stopped working. So annoying. So what I've done this morning is I visited a fantastic chap and his fiancée. That is my cousin, James Mortimer. I wasn't going to say his full name. There you go. Whoops. So, it's fine. He's a stand-up chap. So, great time. So I had to get the train into London, which is normally an hour. Turned out to be 3 hours this time, so it was a bit tedious, bit delayed. But I was having to shift from the east end of London, underneath London, on what is known as the London Underground, to pop up in the East End and then pop back down into the depths of the cave tunnels of London and then go back across London to West London. That's what I've done this morning. So I've done 2 long journeys. Now, the reason I bring all that up is I had to have some kind of auditory amusement. So because of the requirement for auditory amusement to make the journey pass by seamlessly, I was listening to music, and so on the way there, I was listening to ABBA. Embarrassingly enough, I'm a bit of an ABBA fan because they produce something magical. If you can get past the cringe aspect of it, it's actually, the songs are magical. Now, on the way back to West London, aka just now, what I did, and I often do this, I did a 2-song queue where you pick 2 songs that sort of match, and you just queue them one after the other and keep listening to one after the other. So what I was doing was Pusha T song, Dreaming of the Past, released recently, samples Jealous Guy by John Lennon. John Lennon, Jealous Guy, one of the greatest songs ever. So I was doing a Dreaming of the Past, followed by Jealous Guy, followed by Dreaming of the Past. That's what I was listening to, and it was a beautiful experience. And then at some point, I was like, I'm going to go to listen to more of the Dreaming of the Past. So Pusha T has an album from which this song originates. It's called It's Almost Dry. Now, I've listened to that a lot. It's Almost Dry. So what I thought I'd do is talk about the rap game. That's the plan for the episode. So It's Almost Dry. God, it's terribly noisy here. I'm right at the exit of the station. So as the trains arrive, then a great horde of travellers disembark and exit from that station just to my left. Causes quite a racket. So the rap game, interesting term. Now, am I qualified to talk about the rap game? Absolutely not. But that's not the point. The great thing about hip hop is being who I am and where I've grown up, which is Oxford, which is a nice town in England. You know, I don't like to use the adjective white because obviously I am white, but I sort of don't feel like that's the most relevant thing about. But what is hip hop? It's a glorious window into another world window into the lives of people who've incredibly lived in incredibly lived and grown up in incredibly different situations, but there's a humanity that's common, and you can and it's a great um, it's a beautiful thing, the art form of hip hop, and the talent and verbal fluency of these artists, despite not being traditionally educated, they have a verbal fluency, depth of wisdom that is, that leaves people with Oxford degrees and Cambridge degrees in the dust. And so it's like, you know, you don't need to be formally educated to be educated. These people discover these wisdoms and these talents and practice them and go through their lives and talk about them and the Oxbridge types that are left in the dust. Particularly, we're talking particularly about the greats. We're talking particularly in this generation of Kendrick Lamar and of J. Cole. Those two, one is tempted to put as a cut above the rest. Now, Pusha T. We've got these names. So Pusha T. Apparently, don't know the guy personally. Apparently, his name arose from. So I'm getting this wrong, I think, but I think maybe someone like Jay-Z gave him his name, or some elder statesman in the rap game gave him the name Pusha T because it might have been Pharrell Williams, because every time they were in the studio together, whatever, and then he had to go and do some side missions for a while, aka deal and cook drugs and sell them, and then come back to the studio. So he was always sort of going off and about, and so he was sort of known as Pusha. So Pusha T. I think his first name might be Terrence. Might be wrong. That's maybe where the T comes from. So he's done this album called "It's Almost Dry." Now, the place where that name comes from, "It's Almost Dry," is a reference to. So he was cooking up this album, creating it, and everyone was asking, "Is it done? Is the album done?" And he said, "It's almost dry." So it's like a canvas. So it's like he was making this album, and he was like painting a canvas, and the thing was almost dry. So that's what he kept on saying to everyone. So he thought, I might as well just call the album "It's Almost Dry," because it's a great, because it hints at the aspect that really this is high art, aka creating a magnum opus, creating a beautiful painting with paint. And so, dry. It's almost dry. That's the name of the album. So, so why did this make me think of the rap game as a whole? Good question. So the opening song, Brambleton, is an absolute banger. It's this like muddy beat, like ugh. In fact, there's a couple of times in the beat where the sort of sound comes out. And what he's doing in there is he's placing a stake in the ground, and it's a very brave stake in the ground of the rap game, as I understand it. What he's doing is he's placing a stake. So in Brambleton, he discusses his past, and like lays bare his iniquities for the authorities to judge him. Now, so he dealed a lot of cocaine, as I understand it, in the south of America, southern states, and having to go to the border town, aka the border of Mexico and the United States, to collect said parcels of this powder and then sell it for. So the refrain of the song is, we really used to roll around copping quarter pounds from the border town. So quarter pounds would be a quarter pound of cocaine, I would imagine. So Now, why is that? Why is that in any way remarkable? Now, I mean, I can hear my parent, my sort of elder figures in my life saying, "Well, this is all this rap business is a nonsense. It's illegal activity, and they should grow up and quit messing around." Fair enough. But what happens if you have lived that lifestyle for 10 years? Can you redeem it? So, what Pusha T is doing here is mimicking a Jay-Z. You know, he's a Jay-Z figure is what's going on here. So Jay-Z also dealt a lot of cocaine. And then at some point in his career said, you know, F it, it's going to be, F it, it's going to be public. So, like, great bravery in that. So, because obviously it's illegal. And so the police are, or the DEA are wanting to arrest said rappers and put them behind bars for 20 years for dealing said illegal drugs. So Jay-Z's original album is called Reasonable Doubt. Absolute classic in the industry. 1996 comes out, bam, great album, and he's just open about it now and then, but doesn't refer directly to it, because you can imagine the DEA is constantly on his back during that time, during the production of that album, and it's just kind of like it's just a baller move to be open about it. And then eventually Jay-Z gets to the point where he's a billionaire, where he's succeeded in the industry. You know, he releases the Blueprint 3 in 2009, Black Album, retires, comes back. Blueprint 3, he says, you know, I don't just run rap, I run the map. And of course he does, and of course he helped Barack Obama get elected president. So that's quite a character arc. To elect the president, the first black president, you know, he said, you know, small part of the reason the first president is black. Well, part of the reason the president is black, I told him I got him when he hit me on the jack. So during Obama's campaign trail, Jay-Z and Beyonce were influential. So the point of all this is that Jay-Z has risen from a kid in Brooklyn, Marcy Projects, a kid to someone of quite high social standards, quite high social standing in elite circles. That's the important thing, in elite circles. So he's now talking with the lawyers, he's talking with the politicians, he's on a man-to-man basis, you know, let's sit down, and so I'm obviously a criminal, but he's you know, it's quite a remarkable thing, and what he's trying to do is shine a light to these politicians that these laws, this drug war is the laws need to be changed in some way. Now, that's a conversation, that's a dialogue. No one has all the answers. But the point is, he has the bravery. And his final album, 444, 4:44, great title. I mean, Barack Obama, 44th president, UK phone number, plus 44. He's got 3 kids, 4, you know, great title. But it's just a masterpiece, demonstrating 444 in particular is Jay-Z's masterpiece, demonstrating how far he's come and the difference, the depth, and obviously he has to discuss his marriage. Now, there was this great infidelity that took place between him and Beyonce, and Beyonce released an album called Lemonade, which discussed the effect of that infidelity on her, and it was it's a painful but moving listen. And then 444 is in some way the response to that. And right, okay, so it's a little detour. That's who Jay-Z was, and so Pusha T is kind of in its almost right. He's making a stake in the ground, and he's a magnificent artist in and of himself. But what he's doing is putting a stake in the ground and being open about his past and kind of like taunting the authorities. And now it's a pretty beautiful thing. And Jay-Z pops up on the album in song 4 or something, Neck and Wrist, and says something along the lines of, he says some beautiful things. He says, the phase I'm on, love, you wouldn't believe it either. The phase I'm on, love, I wouldn't believe it either. I'd be like, Jay-Z's a cheater. I wouldn't listen to Reason either. And he goes on to say some some great things. I'm sort of running out of ideas here. Another thing that Pusha T discusses is says when huff and puff in the club, then I gotta be shine. Now, in the context of the song, I think he's referring to Mr. P Diddy, Puff Daddy, as I understand it, who is the sort of heir to the notorious B.I.G. and has this place in the rap game as someone who's not perhaps an excellent rapper in and of themselves, but someone who is of standing and caliber. That's what I was going to say, actually. So now Kendrick Lamar, who is, I think, a cut above even J. Cole, possibly the greatest of all time. He has this refrain, "Pray for me," in the album Damn and in other songs, and in the Black Panther album he has a whole song called "Pray for Me." And then Pusha T echoes this sentiment in one of these songs of the album. I forget which one. It's something like, I think it's the second song. No, I think it's in It's Dreaming of the Past, which is the one I was listening to, which was Sample's Jealous Guy. So in Jealous Guy, the song goes, I was dreaming of the past, and my heart was beating fast. So that's the sort of the loop of the song, and he says something about there's levels, there's layers, so pray for the players. So it's about an acknowledgement that you can be at the top of the industry, you can be at the top of the hierarchy, but you need help. You know, there's a vulnerability in that, and that's really Kendrick Lamar's point, is that ain't nobody praying for me. Is in feel, ain't nobody praying for me. It's this kind of idea that people forget to. It's an incredible amount of stress when you're on top, you know. When you're in charge, when you're the boss, you're the guy. Everyone's looking to you for what's he doing next. Who's he going to help? Everyone's asking for money. You know, you need help. So there's a vulnerability in that, which I think is something to be considered, remarked upon, and can you let that vulnerability impact your own life? So I'm sort of sitting here as a random dosser, looking up at these guys like, what's going on in this rap game then? I mean, you know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I have obviously no experience to speak of, but I'm just sitting there analysing like, what can I learn from life by analysing the rise and falls of these musical giants, and what is it about their character that allows them to sustain artistic output through trial and difficulty, and certain characters fail, you know, after a while the stress is too much and they just can't produce good albums and they just fail. And so why did that happen? And then you have an Eminem figure who's just this absolute talent, but the nature of his, you know, he produced a bunch of good albums in the early 2000s, and then he has this crash, you know, and that's life. And so you get to essentially watch the journey of a hero crash, and then Eminem rises again and produces some great albums, and just watching just hearing to their lyrics, listening to them. The other thing I advise, I'm not advising, but if you're interested in this, you have to listen to albums. songs don't cut it. You have to listen to the song in the entire corpus, to understand one song and then to understand the whole thing. You can't understand one song unless you understand the whole thing. You can't understand the whole thing unless you understand the individual songs. So it's kind of, you really have to listen to albums in their entirety in order to get any sort of deep gauge on the person. I think we've reached the end of my ramble. So we're going to Uncle Mike's for lunch, and I'm going to hear about my Uncle Peter. So I have an uncle, my mum's brother, mountaineer, who died climbing in the Himalayas. He was on an expedition to climb K2, which is the sort of steepest mountain, famously the most difficult and he died in the. So how cool is that, to be buried in the Himalayas amongst the snow? And he's sort of a hero figure in my family, but never met the guy. Obviously, he died when my mum was 18, so a long time before I was born. And then the craziest thing. So Uncle Mike, who I'm going to visit, went to pay homage to PG. Went to Pakistan and then to the Himalayas from there to go to the foot of the mountain, go to base camp of the mountain that he died. And then he did that, and it was moving. And then he got on the plane, went to Pakistan to get on the plane to go back to England. Jumped on the plane in Pakistan, and then what happened? His plane got hijacked. And there were 200 people on the plane or whatever, and everyone has to give they asked for all the passports because they wanted to find British citizens and American citizens because they're the most valuable bargaining chips. So out of all the people on the plane, he was asked to go up to the front and be held at gunpoint for like 8 hours or something. And he was held at gunpoint for 8 hours by these armed terrorists, and then eventually they opened fire on the plane and killed 40 people, but Uncle Mike got out alive. But we're going to talk about the commonality between us, which is that we both lost an older brother. So that's the plan. And perhaps if it goes well, I'll do another one of these later on to talk about what I've learned. And thank you for listening.